A devastating report from the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office detailed the alleged abuse some 1,000 people endured at the hands of over 300 predator priests. One of those stories involves the Fortney family. We recently sat down with this brave family to discuss what happened and how they are fighting to prevent others from going through what they did.
This family went through hell, their lives ravaged by their trusted family priest, who betrayed them in the most depraved way imaginable, stealing the innocence of 5 of their beloved daughters, all while masquerading as a man of God. It was early 1980 when Father Gus Jella suddenly packed up and left his parish in New Jersey. He headed to a new church in Pennsylvania. The Fortney family warmly welcomed the new priest into their home. He came for dinners, gave the kids gifts, asked the children to come to the rectory and help them count the Sunday collection. The sisters say he began to groom them under the guise of what he called education. The family says the abuse began to happen in the rectory, in their home, on family trips, virtually everywhere they went together. For Patty, it started when she was 13. Continued until she was 15. Laura was 10 years old, and it went on until she was 14. Teresa was just 8. She went through this for 4 long years. Marissa was only 7, and it stopped when she turned 10. Carolyn was just a toddler. She was 2 years old. He didn't stop until she was 12, and only then, because that's when his story blew up in his face. While we do not know the full extent of what they suffered, a recent grand jury report says he admitted to fondling the girls. Investigators then found he had regularly collected samples of their urine, pubic hair, and blood. Tragically, the grand jury also discovered, now in an all-too-familiar tale, that the church knew about Gus Jella. In 1987, a local teacher got a complaint that Jella was doing, quote, wrong things with children, asking to follow them into the bathroom. The teacher reported them to the principal, who immediately reported it to the diocese, where it went nowhere. Another note addressed to then Bishop and later Cardinal William Keeler mentioned concerns about Jella, but neither did anything. Although he voluntarily retired in 1988, he was still an active predator, according to his victims. And in 1992, some of the Fortneys were at Jella's beach house when the unthinkable happened. A young niece found a box of photos in the house. Inside were pictures of naked young girls. One of them was Carolyn Fortney. Father Jella was confronted and questioned by a Father Hellwig. Jella told Hellwig it had started in the bath and that it had progressed from there. He said he imagined the family would be sore at him, and he would agree not to contact them. Father Hellwig told Mrs. Fortney, "You can relax. Father said that, redacted, just took his intentions toward her wrong, that he loved her and he would never hurt her." That is when Jella was arrested. But he died before his trial. No available church records indicate that they ever told the authorities about him. The full story only coming out decades later as part of a massive state investigation into clergy sex abuse.
Joining me now on set, sisters Laura, Patty, Carolyn, and Teresa. And from Pennsylvania, Mom Pat and Dad Ed, and their supportive sisters Sandra and Jeannie. You know, I do want to start, Pat, with you in Harrisburg, because when I go through your story and you learn about after all of this began to become exposed, you went to the priest.
I went to the diocese building and met with Father Monsignor Overball. At the meeting, Monsignor Overball questioned why I let the girls go to the rectory. And I said to him, well, my older girls used to go to the rectory to help you. Should I have wondered what was going on? I get a call from Father Hellwig, and that's who they sent to New Jersey. He called me and he said, Pat, I talked to Father Jello, and he assured me that Carolyn was mistaken for his feelings for her. There was nothing going on. Never heard from anyone from the church again.
You know, when you hear that, Carolyn, it's so hard to identify sort of which the worst betrayal is, because the cover-up is almost just as bad, perhaps, as the actual abuse.
You know, I often say, I feel like I'm living in the twilight zone. How do people even think this is okay?
Teresa, when did you all start to realize that he was doing this to all of you?
It wasn't until the grand jury investigation. Yes, it was known that Carolyn was abused, and then I came out shortly after that. But as far as these two, it's just been a short 2.5 years.
I didn't realize. I was in a counseling session with my husband and my pastor and his wife. I was sharing with him what the priest would do to me, and my pastor literally leaned forward and he said, "Patty, do you realize you were sexually abused?"
He worked his way through the family, Laura.
Yeah. For me, I'm still discovering things. It was about 2.5 years ago when Carolyn came to Patty and I and said, "We need to break the silence." And she didn't know of our abuse at that point. And then Patty would call me and say, "Laura, do you remember when he would do this?" And I'd say, "I didn't, but now I do. I do remember that."
You know, Ed, I'm sure, obviously, for a father, it's so devastating.
I believed what happened to my Carolyn right away when I was told about it, and because the way she was crying and acting and everything, it was just had to be true, because no one would act like that or lie to their father in that manner. So I knew it had to be true. I couldn't work for 2 years after that happened, and that really put us in the hole.
Talk to me about the after impact, you know, as you go through life, how you deal with it as a family, and what did it take away from you that you're trying to get back?
I would have people say to me, "How many sisters and brothers do you have?" I'd say, "I have 7 sisters and a brother. I'm the youngest of 9, but I kind of have always felt like an only child." Because, you know, we really are just now starting to get to know each other.
I moved away.
Yeah.
I constantly was moving away. I wanted to suppress it. I did suppress it. And I'm just so thankful that I do have my family back. And I'm not ashamed anymore.
I'd like to add that it impacted our children too. Because of this, we lost a lot of trust in people in society, especially leaders, coaches. We didn't know who to trust.
But I really want to, you know, put a program together that, you know, educates children, because, you know, some people might push that aside, thinking that it's too much information for a child to handle, but not today.
He never went to trial. He died before he went to trial. And we have seen in some of these other cases the opportunity for people to step forward and to look this person in the eye and say something that they want to say. If you had that opportunity, what would you say?
Well, for me, I've forgiven him, because I feel like the Catholic Church was the one responsible for having such leniency to all of this, that it pretty much attracts pedophiles because of how the laws are.
It's a place to hide.
It's a place to hide.
I feel exactly like Laura does. You know, I forgave Father Jella a long time ago. I really did. I blame the hierarchy. Bishop Keeler was on his road to cardinal, and it was more important for the Harrisburg Diocese to have a bishop that was going to be named a cardinal than it was to protect our family, and that's the bottom line.
Carolyn.
I haven't forgiven him. I don't know if I ever will.
As a Christian, I can't harbor that guilt to not forgive him. But it's very hard to,
I want to thank all of you so much for sharing your story and for hopefully making it easier for other families to come forward. It's so wonderful to see all of you together and pulling together, and I wish you all the best. They're a wonderful family, and I thank them so much for opening up to us and for coming here with us and being on the story. They are asking victims of priest abuse to reach out like they did. Use this hotline number, they say, 1-888-538-8541. Their former diocese provided us with this statement. It reads in part, on behalf of the Diocese of Harrisburg, Bishop Gaynor sends his deepest apologies and prayers to the Fortney family and all survivors of child sexual abuse. Clearly, this case was not handled properly, and those in positions of power failed to protect children from Jella, a monster who preyed on innocent children. The diocese has removed the names of the accused abusers and former bishops from all buildings and places of honor.